And welcome into the Cam Rogers Show. Happy Monday morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is September 18th, 2017. I am Cam Rogers. So glad you're taking time out of your Monday morning to join me. We're taking you up until 11 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, as we always do. And it's episode 4 of the Cam Rogers Show. We're very excited, and we're also excited to hear from you. We don't just encourage your social participation, we demand it. We want you commenting and reacting throughout this hour-long program here today. Hey, are you stuck in the office right now? Perhaps some Monday morning blues and you want to sneak a little sports content through today? Hey, that's fine. I won't tell the bosses. Totally cool with me. So sit back, relax, and we have a lot to get to on the program here today. Of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. We're going to go through my morning headlines, get to my opening rant about fantasy football players and how they are just so obnoxious sometimes. And, of course, we have our totem pole today, and we are power ranking the worst first date locations. Gonna have some fun with that. My guy Harris Rubenstein will come on the show to discuss. We'll do a little who's hot and who's not in the NFL and the sporting world as a general sense. And we'll wrap up with a little moping on Monday. Who's ruining your Monday today? I'm sure there are a few candidates out there. And then the final word about the Giants and Lions tonight. Somebody is playing for their coaching life. I'll tell you who it is at the end of the show. Let's get into the headlines here, and we'll start off with one. Roger Goodell. Looks like his iron shield is cracking a little bit, folks. ESPN's Adam Schefter reporting Cowboys owner Jerry Jones is impeding on contract talks with the NFL commissioner. Now, the NFL Compensation Committee will be having a conference call on Wednesday, and Jerry Jones will be on that call. So a very interesting development to monitor for the midpoint of the week here. And we take this to you, folks. We want you commenting on Roger Goodell's performance so far as NFL commissioner. Clearly, Jerry Jones not so fond of it at this juncture. Of course, you have the Zekiel Elliott situation that just seems to not end like the Deflategate deal. So it looks like the whole Zeke situation will carry on for quite a long time, especially if he continues to play this regular season. Heck, he may be suspended for part of the 2018 campaign. So Roger Goodell has been a model of controversy, shall we say, for the last couple of years with the likes of Ray Rice and Greg Hardy and his situation with domestic violence suspensions and being inconsistent. Talked about it in the debut show not too long ago. And so I want to hear from you guys. I want to know what you think about Roger Goodell right now. I mean, Patriots fans probably just laugh at him. Cowboys fans are probably just mad. Jaguars fans are like, who's Roger Goodell again? So again, we want you weighing in, we want you commenting, and we will show some of the best comments live on air here today. And by the way, the Cam Rogers Show is now on demand. Hey, you at the beach, you at a cookout. I know it's kind of the end of summer, but maybe you're chilling somewhere and you're not by a computer screen. You can download the Cam Rogers Show podcast version on iTunes. Just search the Cam Rogers Show, subscribe, download, and you'll get me wherever you go if you so choose. And we'll get to some more headlines here. Talking about the AP Top 25. Yes, it was released yesterday, and the Clemson Tigers jumped the undefeated Oklahoma Sooners for number 2 in the AP poll. Here's how it is in the top 5. Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, Penn State, and USC. Now, Alabama, of course, has been number 1 all season long. The Clemson Tigers jumping to number 2 could be a point of controversy here, especially for our Oklahoma friends north of the border here. Penn State, they're at number 4. USC at number 5 with a fantastic win against Texas. Certainly went down to the wire in that one. So we want you to weigh in on Roger Goodell, and we want you to weigh in on this. Who really is the best college football team in the country? Are we destined for yet another Alabama versus Clemson national championship? That's the way it's setting up right now. Look, Clemson had a fantastic victory against the Louisville Cardinals and beating Lamar Jackson. We know Louisville doesn't have the greatest defense in the world, but the fact that Clemson beat yet another quality opponent is something that certainly we shouldn't sneeze at. Heck, they led 33-7 in the fourth quarter, probably played a little conservatively in that final quarter to let Louisville score a few more points there. But for Clemson, I think they certainly do earn this second spot here. Yeah, it seems not fair because Oklahoma's 3-0 right now, and one could argue that Oklahoma should stay at number 2 because they haven't lost a game, but you got to look at the overall resume, and Clemson beat Auburn a couple weeks ago. That was a tough, grindy type of game. Then they win the shootout versus Louisville, scoring a ton of points there. 47-21, your final score on Saturday. So we want you to weigh in and comment. Again, we'll feature them on the show here. Who really is the best college football team in the country? Could Clemson knock down Alabama? Like right now, if they played in a neutral site, could the Tigers beat the Crimson Tide? Big question mark right there. USC at number 5 is interesting to me. Look, Texas has been kind of brutal this year. My Maryland Terrapins took them down pretty handedly. And, USC just squeaked by the Longhorns. So we'll see what happens with them. But for USC at number 5, I think it's a little bit more of the brand recognition keeping them in that top 5 there than anything else, although it was an impressive victory over Texas. Texas, not a world beater this year, at least so far in the college football campaign. So there, again, is your top 5. Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma, Penn State, USC. A part of me feels that this top 5 is very volatile. I mean, I think it's going to change as we go forward. It's only been a few weeks. I know Alabama will be there. Clemson will be there. Oklahoma will be there. I don't think USC will be there for very long. Penn State hasn't really been challenged so far. And you have the likes of Michigan and all these other contenders that are below this top 5 that can certainly squeak through and really make some noise going forward. So, weigh in on who you think is the best college football team in the country right now. It's a tough call. I mean, the easiest answer is Alabama, but we'll see going forward. Another headline here, and a bizarre one at that. So, Dolphins linebacker Lawrence Timmons was a complete no-show to yesterday's game against the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers ended up losing that game. Miami won after they basically squeaked out that victory because of a missed field goal from the Chargers kicker. And even head coach Adam Gase sounded confused, saying, quote, "I need to figure some things out before I talk about this." So he doesn't even know what's happening. Adam Schefter just tweeting moments ago saying that Lawrence Timmons will be meeting with doctors today to discuss some sort of situation. So clearly this is more than just him flaking out, not showing up to a football game. There could be something more to the story here. I mean, clearly a health problem if he's seeing a doctor today, according to Adam Schefter's sources. And, I mean, it could be something very serious. Could have been something that was really sudden that he had to take care of, didn't have time to communicate with the Miami Dolphins. We'll see. But I went from writing this headline last night and just kind of, saying, oh, he just didn't show up. Oh, this is kind of like a fun little story, to perhaps something very, very serious for Lawrence Timmons. So whatever it is, Lawrence, we wish you the best, sir, in your evaluations with medical officials here today. And we'll monitor that story. I'm sure we'll have more for you on NFL Daily today at 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Another headline, and a couple of headlines actually about some tight ends. First one, Greg Olsen, star tight end for the Carolina Panthers. He's going to be out indefinitely with a broken foot. So fantasy owners, hit the waiver wire here today. Maybe grab a Hunter Henry, Austin Hooper if he's still there, because Greg Olsen said himself, quote, "I'll be missing a lot of games." And then, showed a little lighter side and said, hey, at least we won. So there you go, Greg Olsen, showing some positivity there. Olsen's going to see a doctor today, but it's already been reported by NFL Network's Ian Rappaport that Greg Olsen's going to be done for the year. So you may want to just drop him in fantasy circles. And for Carolina Panthers fans out there, I know we have a lot of them in the chat sports community. This is a tough one. This is a tough one, especially seeing Cam Newton go down yesterday as well. Looks like the Panthers are getting a little beaten and battered. So from one tight end to the other here, how about Mr. Antonio Gates making history? Yesterday, Antonio Gates surpassed Tony Gonzalez for most touchdown receptions by a tight end in NFL history. And that's pretty amazing. There's been some really great tight ends over the last few years. I mean, you remember Tony Gonzalez, of course, and you remember Shannon Sharp for the Denver Broncos, for the Baltimore Ravens. He was very important to those offenses. And it got me thinking, folks, I want you to weigh in on who you think is the best tight end in NFL history is. So I do have 4 options for you right here. Tony Gonzalez, use your heart for Tony G. Shannon Sharpe, a wow face. Ozzie Newsome, my guy, Baltimore Ravens GM, former Brown. Of course, Alabama alum as well. Use your laughing face for Ozzie, and then others, so Antonio Gates, Rob Gronkowski, some of the old-timer tight ends from like the 50s that I can't think of off the top of my head. Throw them in there for other, and we will follow along with your reactions as well. I certainly like Ozzie Newsome a lot, of course, being a Baltimore Ravens GM. He's a Pro Football Hall of Famer, 3 Pro Bowls in his own right. Tony G, a fantastic resume, voted to an NFL record 14 Pro Bowls, 6-time first-team All-Pro, and NFL 2000s All-Decade team. Shannon Sharpe, 3 Super Bowls. I mean, you can't deny the rings, right? If you want to think about rings here, you know, Shannon Sharpe is probably your guy, and you're throwing up a wow face. So Antonio Gates as well, we can consider him for the other portion. Rob Gronkowski and a few others. Kellen Winslow comes to mind as well. So a lot of tight ends out there that you could choose from. So throw in your reactions throughout the show. Of course, always drop your comments. And my guy, Rob Coons, throwing in Jason Witten, ... You are absolutely right. I can only put up 4 options here, so I had to throw in the other. But yeah, I mean, when you're considering all of the abilities of a tight end, right? We're talking about catching, we're talking about blocking, we're talking about the intangibles, the locker room presence. I think Jason Witten fits the bill. The guy's going to go into the Hall of Fame. So durable. Okay, so I have a little nugget of information for you guys. There is one time in the history of my playing fantasy football where a guy went into a game doubtful and ended up playing. Who was that guy? Jason Witten. So Rob Coons, thank you for chiming in there, because that's the only guy I can remember being doubtful and ended up playing in a football game. Pretty crazy at that. So Jason Witten, certainly a durable guy for the tight end position and going into the Hall of Fame for sure. So really a fantastic career so far. Still getting it done. Great blocker. So there you have it for the opening headlines today. Of course, we'll have some more big storylines for you at NFL Daily later on this Chat Sports Monday. So let's get into my opening rant here. And Mr. Odell Beckham Jr., Mr. Martellus Bennett, Jeremy Maclin a couple years ago, Todd Gurley last year. I'm coming to your defense. In the words of fantasy football, for the love of God, all fantasy football players out there, please promise me this. Stop tweeting at real NFL players with your complaints. It's really ridiculous. And I wrote the statement like this. Please stop complaining to real NFL players about your fake NFL team. Because that's what it is. It's fake. It's fantasy. It's for fun. It's not life or death. Please stop adding players on Twitter, calling them out because they're hurt or what have you, when they're in pain and you're trying to give them more grief. Hey, by the way, here's a thought. If you continue to complain at them, that might actually hurt their mindset and might actually make their recovery longer. Think about that one. I just think it's ridiculous that fantasy football players take the time to go on social media and complain to real players who are putting their bodies on the line to put food on the table for their spouses, for their kids, etc. Okay? You got to think about the broad scheme of things. And here's the tweet from Odell Beckham Jr. from a couple of days ago. Quote, "No offense, I could care less about your fantasy teams. This is my real life, focusing on getting healthy and getting better one day at a time." And that tweet, a pretty good reception. 19,000 retweets and going up, probably at 10,000 at this point. I took the screenshot of that one yesterday afternoon. So, look, Odell Beckham Jr. certainly has an argument, and I am totally on board with it because, again, fantasy football is about fun. Real football, it's a job for these guys. And when they're hurt, and when you have a frustrating injury like Odell Beckham Jr. has right now with the ankle, it's pretty obnoxious to get tweets from people complaining about the injury. I mean, this ankle could leave Odell Beckham Jr. out for a series of weeks. Heck, he could play tonight against the Detroit Lions. We'll talk about that game later. But that's beside the point. The point is, what are you doing taking the time to go on social media complaining to a player who's probably not going to respond to you and probably isn't going to get better any faster just from your social media. Are you trying to be funny? Because it ain't funny. I know humor. I know jokes. Come on. That's not funny. So please stop it. Stop complaining to NFL players. Play your fantasy football. Enjoy it. And stop taking it so seriously. We have another tweet here, Mr. Martellus Bennett from September 1st. Quote, I don't care about your fantasy football team. It's almost like the same thing that Odell said. Thanks. Sincerely, real life football guy. Power to you, Martellus Bennett. I am so with you. Look, there's the argument that fantasy football is one of the driving forces behind the revenue stream for the NFL and then subsequently the salaries for these players. I mean, sure, I'll buy into that. Absolutely. But the fact of the matter is, the NFL was always dominating in terms of revenue, in terms of money stream, in terms of the bottom line. So, yeah, fantasy football is helping, but it's not the be-all, end-all. It's not the reason these guys are so successful. It's just, a contributing factor. And, yeah, there are studies out there that say that fantasy football has an impact on NFL viewership. So we want you to react. I'm sure you're all fantasy football players out there. How seriously do you take your fantasy football team? We have a few options for you. Give me a laughing face if it's literally your life, like live and breathe it. Give me a heart if it's important, but heck, you still love your family and you want to keep tabs on your spouse and kids. Give me a wow face if you're just somewhat casual about it, and a little angry face if, heck, you don't even play it. You just enjoy real-life NFL football at its core. So throw in those reactions, and we'll be following along, of course. Throw in your comments as well. I want to know what you think about fantasy players complaining to real-life NFL players on Twitter. It's absolutely obnoxious. Now, some players can have a good sense of humor about it. And look, I mean, there are many examples of this, but here's a prime one, my man Todd Gurley. So a Twitter user from December 2016 saying, quote, if I ever see you in public, we're fist fighting over your fantasy football performance this year. Todd Gurley, pull up then, period. Like, that's funny, okay? I mean, Todd Gurley clearly having some positivity about the situation, showing a little humor there, and that tweet got a pretty good reception. But look, number one, nobody wants to hear about your fantasy football team. Heck, a lot of times, players in that same league don't even want to hear about your fantasy football team. I'm a commissioner of a very intense league, and sometimes I don't want to hear about complaints from my fellow league mates. And so that's number one. And number two, if a regular citizen doesn't want to hear about your football team, your fantasy football team, NFL players most definitely do not want to hear about your fantasy football team. And so we got one more reaction for you as we wrap up this opening rant here. And this one's funny. I mean, I want to get you guys to really go wild about this one. Your response internally, I mean, I'm sure a lot of us pretend to be nice when people complain about the fantasy teams, but your internal response when people rant about their fantasy teams. Give me a sad face for, yeah, I gotta go, sorry. Give me an angry face for, dude, who cares? A like for interesting stuff, literally interesting, like no sarcasm there. And give me a wow face for, I have no idea what you're saying, don't play fantasy football, don't care at all, just no idea. Totally neutral. So weigh in on that. I would weigh in on the angry face. Dude, who cares? Who cares? Honestly, unless you're complaining to a fantasy analyst who truly cares about your fantasy team, yeah, all set on that one. So that's my opening rant for today. Odell Beckham Jr., Martellus Bennett, and the rest of the NFL community, do you continue, be great, and ignore the haters. And if you're a hater complaining about fantasy football and these players' respective performances, please stop. And that's the opening rant. We're going to hit a quick break here on the Cam Rogers Show. Coming up on the other side, who's not and who's not in the world of sports. Stick around. We got a good slate of names here. And welcome back to the Cam Rogers Show on this Monday morning. It is 10:20 on the East Coast. We thank you for tuning in here on Facebook Live, on Chat Sports, also on demand on the iTunes podcast app. Just search the Cam Rogers Show. It's time to get into who's not and who's not across the sporting world. We'll start off with the Clemson Tigers. Talked about them a little bit earlier. They're now the #2 team in the country according to the AP poll. They jumped up over Oklahoma. The Sooners fans out there, I'm not too happy. I was looking at the Oklahoma Sooners Facebook page here on Chat Sports, and they're not happy. It's safe to say. So Clemson, I mean, they have 15 first-place votes there. So people are starting to buy into this team. Mentioned that victory over Louisville, 47-21. How about Kelly Bryant? Guy's getting it done right now. He's performing under the bright lights. 2 marquee wins against the likes of Louisville and Auburn. So who's not? I think Clemson, one of the hotter teams in all of sports right now. And they could jump over Alabama at some point. Alabama's going to get tested pretty soon in the SEC. And even though LSU lost a clunker and, the SEC is a little rickety at the bottom, I still think Alabama could lose a spot. Clemson could get up to #1. And they will really be hot at that point. So we'll monitor that going forward. Next team, Kansas City Chiefs. Look, they beat the Patriots at Gillette. Bright lights, national TV, opener. Great win. I think this win against Philadelphia, 27-20, is even more important. Why is that? Because that second game was a test, right? It was a test of whether or not they could handle that success, carry that weight of beating the defending champions, and essentially the class of the AFC going into 2017. They did that. They handled it. They wiped out any complacency that they previously had, and they took down a quality opponent in the Philadelphia Eagles, a team that beat the Washington Redskins pretty well in Week 1. A front seven that's fantastic in the Philadelphia Eagles, and Alex Smith is continuing to ball out. Kareem Hunt really looks like a star, especially in fantasy communities. So, Kansas City Chiefs, I would argue they have the best resume right now in the National Football League. Monitor the power rankings tomorrow morning, folks, and we'll have our power rankings show tomorrow night. Kansas City Chiefs, they could be #1, honestly. So we'll watch, because the Packers just got crushed last night to the Falcons. My third hot player, Michael Crabtree, my man. He's on my fantasy team. I had him in daily fantasy yesterday. 3 touchdown receptions, 80 yards, 6 receptions total. Michael Crabtree getting it done. It always seems to me in the Oakland Raiders offense, it's either an Amari Cooper game or a Michael Crabtree game. Yesterday was Michael Crabtree. Week 1 was Amari Cooper. Look, the Oakland Raiders can beat you in many different fashions. They can ground and pound with Marshawn Lynch. They can chuck it around to Crabtree and Amari Cooper. This is a team that's very scary, and Michael Crabtree, a fantastic fantasy asset. I think he could be a top 10 fantasy wide receiver by the year's done. So Michael Crabtree certainly carrying the hot hand into Week 3 of the NFL. And now time for, well, actually, we'll get there in a second. I want to show you the full graphic here. Clemson, there you go, 15 first-place votes and that nice victory over Louisville. There are the Chiefs. I mean, that looks pretty good. W's over NE and Philadelphia. I would argue, best resume. And finally, Michael Crabtree. Look at that stat line, very, very solid against the New York Football Jets yesterday afternoon. Okay, time for the not so hot, and by not so hot, I just mean not hot at all. The Tennessee Vols. Oh, I feel for them. I really do. Playing the Florida Gators on CBS Saturday, and it was a rough finish. They were in that game till the very end, playing the Florida Gators. Look, they, #1, lost that game. #2, have a couple of injuries to deal with right now. Darren Kirkland, inside linebacker, they've already lost him for an extended period of time. And now it seems another linebacker, outside linebacker, Cortez McDowell, this according to 24/7 Sports, likely to require surgery due to a wrist injury. So for the Tennessee Volunteers, 2 linebackers that could be done for the year. Well, we know one is certainly done for the year, but McDowell could be another as we show you that Hail Mary. I mean, it's pretty tough. I mean, if I'm a Tennessee Volunteer fan, if I'm Peyton Manning, etc., I mean, here it is. So Florida, a team that has struggled all year to score touchdowns, just a fling. And for some reason, the Tennessee secondary gets beat deep. I mean, the Gators had one option to throw it into the end zone, and they got it done there. They won that game. That's tough to watch. That's tough to watch. That's like me throwing an interception in intramural flag football to seal our playoff fate. It happened to me, folks. It happens to everybody. So we got another knot here. Oh, the Jets. The Jets. What happens to the Jets? The chain gang guy was a victim of Jets magic yesterday against the Oakland Raiders. And you'll see right here, wide receiver Robbie Anderson. He's had a pretty good campaign so far. I mean, he's a good little receiver. Pretty good route runner. And we'll show you the video right here. So he'll catch a ball at around 20-yard line. He'll run out and gets licked on the shoulder and just barrels into a chain gang guy. I mean, look at that. It almost looks like he levels his shoulder into the chest of that chain gang guy. And that guy, you know, he looks 65-ish years old. So, I mean, that's tough on the old guy. I feel bad for him, buddy. Hopefully he's recovering well, or hopefully he's okay. But, man, the chain gang, I mean, they lay it out on the line, folks. And finally, the Dallas Cowboys, they're not right now. They got blown out by the Denver Broncos, 42-17. Zekiel Elliott was absent in this game. 9 carries, 8 yards. In fact, in one of the interceptions by Dak Prescott yesterday, Zekiel Elliott didn't even move. He just kind of walked off the field. So, could be some panic in Dallas right now. So, for the Cowboys, they're 1-1. You can write off the undefeated season if any fans out there had any hopes of that. So, yeah, I mean, I think Tennessee probably is hurting the most. So we'll recap the knots right now in our graphic here. Tennessee, chain gang guy, and Dallas Cowboys. Tennessee, I'm sorry, guys. I really am. Oof. But for Dallas, I mean, 42-17 in a game that was supposed to be pretty close, a little concerning going forward. We'll see what happens if Dak Prescott can actually win games throwing 35 to 40 times. Probably not. Going to have to use Zeke a little more. We'll talk about Zeke in our Moping on Monday segment in a little bit. But it's time to hit a break here on the Cam Rogers Show. And it's time for the totem pole. In just a matter of seconds, my guy Harris Rubenstein will be coming on. We'll be talking about worst first date locations. Do you remember your worst first date and where you were? We want you chiming in on that. Stick around. It's the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports. And welcome back to the Cam Rogers Show. And I got my guy Harris Rubenstein.
What's going on?
Dude, you're like a fixture on the show now.
I'm happy to be here. I like coming on. We have a nice vibe going on. I like our topic for this week. But I want to go back. You mentioned the whole fantasy football thing. I'm in a dynasty league. I've been in this league for 6 years. Like this, my old high school buddies. I'll constantly get texts about like their matchups from their weeks of like things I wasn't even involved in. I'm like, what do you want me to say?
Snooze alert.
I'm sorry that you lost. Like I wasn't even playing against you this week. I don't know what you want me to say. I don't know what I'm supposed to do
it's
when
brutal.
people come at me like that.
I'm sure all the viewers out there understand the pain as well.
Yeah.
And if you're one of the perpetrators of this, stop complaining.
Yeah, we don't need it. I'm 0-1 right now in my dynasty league. I need 19 combined points from the Giants defense and Matt Prater, whatever. So
and you're not going to run off and complain to mom and dad or anything?
If I lose, I'm 0-2, and it sucks, but I'll win next week. I'll be fine.
All right, so today's totem poll. So we're power ranking, Harris, the worst first date locations.
Yes.
So what we're going to do is I'll go through my 5. You'll chime in. You'll go through your 5. We'll recap as we go.
Okay.
So I'm going to start off with a family dinner.
Ooh.
I mean, think about it. I mean, that's just awkward, right? Like first date.
That's
first of all, you
tough.
don't even know the person.
Uh-huh.
So you're meeting someone else, and at the same time, you're meeting their family. It's like a double whammy.
Because like, what if their family is not who you would expect them to be? I know I've met a ton of girls who, you'll meet them and then you meet their parents and you're like, how did that happen?
How did this occur?
And they're just like not similar at all, and it's like weird and the vibe's off. No, that's not good.
Yeah, so family dinner, I mean, that's just a rough situation.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it myself, and I'm sweating. So, yeah, no thanks. Number 4, a fast food restaurant. I mean, nothing says you're not classy.
Which fast food restaurant, Cam?
I mean, like McDonald's and Burger King.
Okay,
if
fine.
you're taking a date to, like, get burgers
Okay, fine.
on your first date, like, come on.
That's fair. Because, let's say the first date is, like, you guys go out, you go to a bar, you get drunk, and you end up at Taco Bell.
Okay, yeah, that's different. That's an additional kind of thing.
Okay, that's different.
If, like,
Okay,
you
got
are
it.
solely going to McDonald's for your first date, that's a red flag.
Yeah,
right?
it's a little too cheap.
Yeah,
it's a little
so,
too cheap for me.
Ladies out there, if a guy offers you to take you to McDonald's, just say no. Like, refer to this show here.
Yeah.
Let's get to number 3. This is just, like, weird. An arcade. I mean, what are we, 10?
All right, hold on. In defense of this, there are a lot of gamers in our age group. If you're super into esports, might be fun.
Okay, so
but
if it's a match made in heaven where, like, it's 2 big-time video game people, maybe.
Then that's, like, fine, but the chances of that are probably pretty low.
And of course, ladies and gentlemen, we want you weighing in on your worst first date experience as we go through our power rankings here. So experience, location, whatever you feel fits the story here. We have some funny screenshots, Harris, that we'll be throwing up that I found, and some good stories that you'll see.
And also, back to number 3 with the arcade. If you go with a girl, you can't win. Like, you have to let her win every time.
See, it's a lose-lose.
Yeah, so you're just literally just giving money away to lose.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. You got to be
There's
chivalrous,
no
right?
romantic
Chivalry isn't
time
dead.
for a first kiss. Unless you get her a teddy bear or something. Nah.
Okay, so there you go. Number 3, an arcade for me. Number 2, worst first date location, an aquarium. I mean, that's boring. And like, how can you have a dialogue when you're at an aquarium?
Aquariums are fun for like a third date or a fourth date.
Right.
But a first date in an aquarium, just like, look at the fish.
Yeah,
There's
I mean, like,
fish.
you're forced to get to know the person, but you're also forced to, like, give commentary on what you're looking at.
Because by the 3rd or 4th date, you probably have some sort of comedic timing with said person. You have good chemistry, hopefully, if you're on your 3rd or 4th date. And you can, like, have a good time without just one person leading. But then, I want to go on a first date to an aquarium.
Yeah.
Too many fish.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about, folks, getting to know the person first, right?
Exactly.
I mean, that's the obvious thing. So an aquarium, not exactly a prime time spot for a first date. Finally, number 1, this just screams wrong, a wedding. Like, you would never take a first date to a wedding, right? That just sends the wrong message.
I think Vince did this in Entourage, if my memory serves me correctly. If it wasn't him, it was another bachelor from another show with a bunch of friends, and there are a couple of them. But if we don't notice anything from Wedding Crashers, maybe I don't think don't think a wedding is a great place for a first date. They might never let you go.
No, I mean, like.
And what if they catch the bouquet? Then all of a sudden you feel pressure to marry them after one
I
date.
didn't even think about that.
Yeah, not great. No.
Yeah, that just spells awkward. No. So, a family dinner, fast food restaurant, an arcade, an aquarium, a wedding. None of those, folks.
Yeah,
None of those for me. And so you came in with your 5 as well. And again, we'll be throwing up some funny screenshots throughout the segment here. We'll be reading them off for you for those who are listening on the podcast. Harris, you're number 5.
I am.
Ex-girlfriend's house party. For a part of me believes that this actually happened.
No, it almost happened.
This
almost happened to me. This almost happened to me in college where my current girlfriend, Mariah, and I almost ended up at a party that was at my ex-girlfriend's, like, best friend's house. And she almost went, and we were about to leave, and I got a text from someone saying, hey, she's here, and we were just like, oh, that's not good. So we just kind of veered, left her, and we just had a bunch of friends over and hung out in my apartment. But we avoided a pretty rough one there. That could have been bad.
Now, I assume that breakup with the ex was pretty bad. Like, you guys aren't friends.
No, we're not friends. She's in Norfolk, Virginia, doing the whole actual journalism thing.
Oh, okay, I got you. This one I have great contentions with, Harris. Number 4, a Nickelback concert. You know, like someday, somehow.
Okay,
those are
if
bangers.
you're gonna go to a concert for your first date, it's got to be better than a Nickelback concert. Like,
are they on tour right now?
I don't even know. Like, go to a Frank Ocean concert, go to a Kanye concert, go to, like, a Taylor Swift concert. But, like, your first concert's a Nickelback. That's just weak. That's a bad. If she comes up to you and is like, can we go to a Nickelback concert for a first date? You're like, no, we can go to a different concert, but we're not going to a Nickelback concert.
Okay, that's fair. All right. I mean, yeah, they might not even be touring right now. They might not be giving out new music. Who the heck knows at this juncture? Let's get to number 3 for you, Harris. This one, like, this is so specific to me that I feel like you did this.
There's a story.
Going to Target. Give me the story.
This was my first date with my current girlfriend. We had nothing to do. We had just started, like, it was right before we started dating. We were hanging in my apartment. We were super bored. And there was a city I lived in Boston, by the way. And a city Target just opened, like, a 3-minute walk away from me. And I was like, I just looked at her. I was like, you want to just go walk around Target? And she's like, sure. So I have a picture on my phone from October 10th, 2015 or 16. I'm awful with dates. I know that our anniversary is October 10th. So it's just her holding a camera at a city Target, and we just walked around the entire night. Probably not what you want for your first date, but we went to Target for our first date. I'll hold that very near and dear to my heart.
You know, that just reminded me of something. So one of my first dates, I actually went to, and this is a regional grocery store, but a Market Basket.
Market Basket, yes.
To actually visit another friend, a mutual friend of ours.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, you know
I know
Market Basket.
I do.
You're from the area.
Market Basket, and then in Maryland we have. Well, I don't think they have it here in Dallas, but Wegmans.
Okay.
Wegmans is the stuff. Wegmans is the best grocery store on the planet.
Mariah, props to you for hanging around with this kid after going to Target for first date. There you go. Did you buy her something there, by the way?
Oh, man, I think we bought something kind of funny that we found. I forget. I think it was like a funky T-shirt or something, but I think it was just like a T-shirt with like a Target symbol on it. We bought it because why would anyone buy a T-shirt with the Target symbol on it? So
very fast forward.
I think we were just having fun.
All right, let's get to number 2, crashing someone's funeral. I mean, this one is just important.
Yeah, no, you probably shouldn't for your first date crash someone's funeral, but I can only imagine if you like wanted to go out with a girl and she offered this as your first date, what your actual reaction would be. That'd be so rough. But in the from Will Ferrell from Wedding Crashers would pick girls up at a funeral and claim that it was the best place to actually pick up women. So
and Wedding Crashers.
Yeah. So I know movies, Will Ferrell, blah blah blah, but not in the real world. Don't do that.
Oh my. Yeah. I mean, just think about it. I mean, that's worse than wedding actually.
Yes.
Like, I would rank that higher compared to the wedding that I had in my totem pole. But let's get to your number 1 here, Harris.
This is a culturally relevant number 1.
Dinner date in the sewers with Pennywise. Please explain.
So Pennywise is the clown from It.
Okay.
They just came out with the remake. It made $137 million worldwide, the highest grossing September. I'm a big film junkie. The highest grossing September film in the history of movies. And just imagine you met a girl at a bar, you're walking home, you look down in one of the big sewer holes, and you see Pennywise with a balloon. He's like, "Do you want some dinner?" And you look at her, you're like, "Want to go have dinner with the creepy clown in the sewer?"
Does that happen in the movie? Is that
No,
what you said?
but kind of the go watch the movie It. It's
Have you
really,
seen
really
it?
good. I have not seen the new one yet. I really need to go see it. But again, we're working so hard here at Chat Sports. I don't have time to go see movies, man. We have work to do here. So
I can't even tell you the last time I saw a movie in theaters.
exactly.
Let's
So
recap the totem poles here. Here's mine. Wedding, folks just don't do it. An aquarium, it's boring. An arcade, I guess it could work. Harris and I kind of talked through that one. Number 4, a fast food restaurant, just not classy. And number 5, a family dinner, AWK.
awkward. Awful.
And Harris's top 5 worst date locations: dinner date in the sewers with Pennywise, crashing someone's funeral, going to Target, a Nickelback concert, ex-girlfriend's house party, and we have a nice little meme here. I like this one, folks. Please tell me more about how awesome your ex is at kissing.
All right, hold on. In reference to this photo, why would any man go into any date and tell any girlfriend they've ever had how good a kisser their ex was?
2 words: a narcissist.
You, sir, should never be allowed to go on a date ever again. Or if this was switched, a girl should never tell a dude how good their former dude was at kissing.
If I had a yellow flag, I'd throw it. That's like a personal
that's
foul.
not cool.
I mean, you can't do that. Here's another tweet I found from January 2016. Quote, "My date was complaining about me on Facebook while at the table. I found out because she accidentally tagged me in the post." You can't do that. That's just wrong.
Oh, just that's an L right there. That's a massive L.
I mean, that's a deflator.
Poor Ed Hill.
Ed Hill.
Poor Ed Hill.
Oh.
You don't deserve that, Ed. You deserve so much better.
You know what, Ed? I'm going to toss you a follow because I feel bad for you. I mean, that was rough. And here's Sarah Fitzpatrick here, July 2016. "He went to the bathroom, then texted me, quote, 'You should call an Uber because he peed his pants and was too embarrassed to come back.' That's awful."
No. Oh, no.
Oh, man, Sarah. That's
Hashtag
tough.
worst first date and hashtag not great. That's awful right
But,
there.
I mean, maybe he was just nervous. Like, would you give him a
Just-
second chance
well,
if you were a girl
all right.
or whatever?
All right. First of all, if you're the dude, you don't tell her what happened. You play it off as if you accidentally got water on your pants from splashing on your hands. If you come out and it smells, you just say, the bathroom smelled like pee. I think someone peed on the floor. And then you're in the clear. You're in the clear at that point. Don't tell her that you peed your pants.
It's so tough.
No. You tell her that it was water from your hands. Take the L. That's bad.
Again, ladies and gentlemen, comment, weigh in on your worst first date experiences and locations. We'll be showing them through the rest of the program here. Harris Rubenstein, good list there, buddy.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
I appreciate having it on. It's having fun. And Mariah helped me with this list, so shout out to her.
Shout out, Mariah.
She came up with some funny ones as well.
Emerson's greatest.
Absolutely.
All right, Harris Rubenstein. He'll be back in future episodes, I'm sure. We'll hit a break here on the Cam Rogers Show. Coming up on the other side, who's got you moping on your Monday? I got some names for you. Stick around. Welcome back to the Cam Rogers Show here on Chat Sports Facebook Live. We thank you for tuning in here, and really a fun segment there in the totem pole. Worst first date locations. I have a feeling I'll be doing something with Tinder not too long from now. Maybe worst opening lines on Tinder. That'd be a good one. Stay tuned on that. But it's time for Moping on Monday, and a lot of clunker performances yesterday, especially in fantasy football. from a lot of big names out there. We'll start off with Lesean Mccoy here, who I really loved going into this season. A fantastic run-blocking offensive line, a true bell cow back in a world of not many bell cow backs. 12 carries, 9 yards against a pretty good Carolina front seven, but still, that's something to be concerned with. I mean, the Bills had good run success last year against some pretty good front sevens, and look, back-to-back games where the Buffalo Bills were really underwhelming in terms of their offensive performance. Lesean McCoy could be having could be causing a lot of mopers on this Monday here because of his performance. Bills fans and McCoy fans alike. But don't complain on Twitter. Don't at Lesean McCoy, please. Remember, referencing this opening rant here. All right, so there's Lesean McCoy as my number one name. Number two, this one's tough. Philadelphia Eagles. They were battling hard against the Kansas City Chiefs in that game. Lost 20-27. Carson Wentz, I mean, he really tried to do it all himself. He actually was the leading rusher in that game. He was more than half of the total rushing yards. And so for the Philadelphia Eagles, they're going to have a lot more success in the ground game, especially on the road. And especially at locations such as Arrowhead, big crowd noise, hostile environment. How do you silence the crowd? Run the football, impose your will. Eagles really didn't do that, and they subsequently lost that game. Kansas City Chiefs, very hot team right now. So perhaps the Eagles have you moping on this Monday morning. And here's another one. Jimmy Graham. I'm seeing articles by beat reporters. Is it time to finally give up on the Jimmy Graham experiment? And I'm not saying it's Jimmy Graham's fault, because it could certainly be the offense that they are employing out there on the football field for the Seattle Seahawks. It certainly could be the offensive line. It's a chain reaction of things. Jimmy Graham, 1 reception, 1 yard. I mean, in standard scoring leagues, that's 0.1 fantasy points. That's pretty bad. Like, that's disgustingly bad. If I were to weigh in here, I would vote as Jimmy Graham being the worst in terms of this moping on Monday. But we do have one more name for you. Mentioned him earlier. Zekiel Elliott. 9 carries, 8 yards. He had more carries than he did yards. And look, I mean, it's not his fault either. Didn't get a lot of opportunities because the Cowboys fell behind very early, had to throw the ball a lot. And when you do that with Dak Prescott, he's not a 35-40 passer attempter. So that's the way it is. And those are the names for moping on Monday. We want you weighing in now on who has you moping on this Monday. You got Lesean McCoy here. Give a sad face. Philadelphia Eagles, throw up that angry face. I know there are a lot of passionate Eagles fans out there. Jimmy Graham, a wow face. And Zeke Elliott, just laugh. Because it was a pretty laughable performance yesterday for the Dallas Cowboys. And by the way, Zeke Elliott, fun fact, leads jersey sales in Greece. Credit to Harris Rubenstein for throwing that little nugget of information there. The NFL released jersey sales for European countries right now. Tom Brady certainly ruling the international world, but Zeke Elliott leading the way in Greece. So there are your options there. Again, weigh in throughout the show. We'd love to see your reactions. We'd love to know what you think. If I had to guess in terms of who's going to win here, in terms of the mopiest of this Monday, September 18th, I guess I would say Jimmy Graham. I mean, because that stat line just looks really bad. 1 reception, 1 yard. I mean, it could be a little better if it was like a reception for 35 yards, 40 yards, and almost scoring a touchdown. I mean, it was really gross. It was gross looking, and I would vote Jimmy Graham, to be honest with you. Here's a few of the names here. Lesean McCoy in that full graphic there, 12 carries, 9 yards. Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah, I mean, they had a good performance in terms of competing, at least, keeping the score close. They didn't run the football well enough. I don't think they're the mopiest, though. I really do think Jimmy Graham is the mopiest there. 1 reception, 1 yard in that one. The Seattle Seahawks have some major concerns going forward. They lost to the Green Bay Packers, and they just squeaked by a Brian Hoyer-led offense at home against the 49ers yesterday. They are 1-1 on the year. They're playing in a division where the 49ers aren't very good. We saw the Rams lose yesterday. Arizona Cardinals, they lost David Johnson. So the path is clear for Seattle right now, but still, they got to pick it up. Classic Seattle early football right now. Okay, it is time to get into the final word, and I am previewing Giants versus Detroit Lions tonight. And this is an important game, especially for the Giants, and here's why. Ben McAdoo could very well see his seat go up a few degrees. No, not a few degrees, like 10 to 15 degrees. Because that performance for the Giants last week, and we have some clips of you here, it wasn't very good. I mean, the defense gave up some plays. Here's a catch here to Butler. And, I mean, that was just a great catch. But for the offense, that's where the real concern is. Because the offensive line is just a complete revolving door. Like, as an offensive line enthusiast, folks, you probably know that by now, I need to see good run blocking and good pass blocking before I can buy into a team. And I'm not seeing that from the Giants right now. You see here in the highlights, Dak Prescott had his way. Eli Manning inside the 10, and he gets sacked. That's inexcusable. Inexcusable. I mean, the offensive line almost gave up in that game. So Ben McAdoo has a lot of pressure on him here in this game. And some people are writing and some people are tweeting, etc., that Ben McAdoo should give up his play calling duties. Of course, he was the offensive coordinator for the Giants before he became the head coach. So, he's been doing it for a while, but perhaps he can't carry the load now because the Giants didn't score a touchdown in that game against the Dallas Cowboys. And they can't run the football. Paul Perkins, I'm sorry, man. You got a little bit of hype in the fantasy football world going into this season. You're just not performing right now, and it's not your fault because that offensive line can't run block. Odell Beckham Jr., power to you in terms of calling out the fantasy haters, but the fact of the matter is he's a little dinged up. And if Odell Beckham Jr. has this ankle injury linger going forward, the Giants are in a lot of trouble because the Giants last week, sans Odell Beckham Jr., looked like a peewee football offense. I mean, it did. It just did. And so I know Braden Marshall, he had his great days, but it's clear he's on his way out. Sterling Shepard, sophomore campaign here, sophomore slump perhaps a factor because he scored a lot of touchdowns last year and kind of inflated his stat line. So Shepard, a little regression to the mean perhaps in terms of his touchdown receptions. He's going to have to step up a little bit. We haven't seen it so far. Look, it's one game. The Giants played a quality opponent in the Dallas Cowboys, but the Dallas Cowboys had a secondary last week that was absent Brandon Carr, absent Barry Church. Well, they'll be absent with those players for the rest of the year because those players are on different teams now. So the Giants had an opportunity to really score some points through the air against the Cowboys in what was a makeshift secondary for this 2017 season. Didn't get it done. And if you can't get it done against the Cowboys, probably one of the worst secondaries in the league, or at least middle of the pack at best, you may not be able to get it done against the Detroit Lions here tonight. Now, the Lions do not have a great secondary either. And Manning's going to have to improve from his stat line last week that we just showed you. And here's the total rushing yards last week, 37. That's not good. And that reflects poorly on Ben McAdoo, or reflects poorly on the actual players who are trying to execute out there. And I'm going to draw a little comparison here because I think the locker room could soon get restless with Eli Manning, with Ben McAdoo, with somebody. I'm not sure who yet, probably Ben McAdoo, because I feel there could be a lot of doubt with him in terms of his experience, just kind of throwing him into the fire, becoming a head coach, formerly an offensive coordinator. Here's the comparison. So a report from Pro Football Talk that we mentioned last night in our NFL recap show said that the locker room for the Cincinnati Bengals is becoming restless, and they want Andy Dalton benched in favor of Colin Kaepernick. So players in an NFL locker room can get a little antsy. If they're not seeing a good performance on the field, and they know that it's not their fault, i.e. A.J. Green, he's running open and the ball's not coming to him, they're going to get impatient. And so if the likes of Brandon Marshall and Sterling Shepard and Paul Perkins are doing their part in that offensive line, and Eli Manning and Ben McAdoo aren't, then players will get restless in the locker room. So it's pretty crazy to think about it, because Andy Dalton was a Pro Bowler not too long ago. It's so crazy how the turnover can occur in the NFL. The Giants are looking ahead. They are going to be drafting a quarterback in this next draft. Ben Roethlisberger, who was in the same class as Eli Manning, was mulling retirement going into this season. Looks like he's going to play just this season, and probably that's it. So Eli Manning, from that same class, could be looking to retirement as well, and the Giants probably know that, and the Giants are probably going to have to look for a quarterback too. So there's going to be turnover here. Ben McAdoo is struggling as an offensive coordinator / head coach. That's really what he is, right? He's like a hybrid right now. And so it's a situation where the Detroit Lions are not a premier opponent. And I'll reveal my pick right here, right now. I do have the Giants winning this football game. Why? Because I do think these teams mirror each other in the sense that they can't run the football, and they have defensive front sevens that are pretty good. I think where the Giants can win in this game is in the secondary. Okay, so you have the likes of Jenkins and, you know, some great cornerback play from younger players, which is very encouraging. You have the safety play from Landon Collins, hard hitter out of Alabama. And so they can get it done in the secondary. The Detroit Lions cannot. They have Darius Slay, and then who else? And Darius Slay isn't playing that well at the cornerback position, so I am going to take the New York Football Giants in this game. But look, remember this moment, folks, because if they lose tonight, you're going to see in the papers, and you know how the New York media can be, they are going to call for Ben McAdoo's head, figuratively speaking, saying that perhaps maybe he should be fired at the midway point of this season. If the Giants get to a record of like 3-5, they're really going to heat up. And the seat for Ben McAdoo is absolutely going to flare up like we've never seen before. Like I said, experience, something to monitor, because Ben McAdoo doesn't have a lot of it in a head coaching capacity. That's going to do it here for the Cam Rogers Show. We thank you for tuning in again every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And again, check me out on the podcast version on iOS. Just search the Cam Rogers Show. I'll see you next time.